And we're live. Welcome to the Multilingual Surveys webinar by QuestionPro. My name is Partha Srinivasan. My co-host is Prachi Gupta. We're going to be running you through what multilingual surveys is and a few other different fun things. But before we jump in, Prachi, a little bit about you, please.
Yep, and just following your lead here, I am based in Bangalore in India. So we are an absolutely global organization. I mean, literally teams located across the continents. And Partha and I are actually a part of the Asia Pacific team. Like I said, I'm based in Bangalore and I lead the commercial business at QuestionPro. And that means everything, all SMBs, startups, any medium-sized businesses, all of that comes under us. We have a team that also runs the enterprise side of our business. And the purpose of our webinar today is just to get you, a little familiar with what we do in the multilingual space. And yeah, if we have, people here working for enterprise companies, we do have a team that, leads that part completely. So we'd love to get in touch with you and put you in touch with the right people.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the case. That's why we're trying to do this. We want more people to use our survey to reach to a maximum audience, to get the maximum value from getting that information. So I'm Partha Srinivasan. I manage marketing for Asia Pacific, and I also lead the partner program here. But more about that towards the end of the webinar. So what
I think the show is appropriate. You could go with at the end of the show. Yeah.
You see, that's my old host. So I used to do a lot of live shows when I was in a previous age, and so I do a lot of live shows and stuff. So that's why it just came out all natural. So I manage marketing here, and that means that if you see any emails coming your way, chances are I've written them and I've sent them out to you using our CRM system. So wave and say hi, or just respond and say hi. I love conversations and I love feedback. I mean, we're in the business of collecting feedback, so why not?
Absolutely.
All right. I think let's go ahead and give this, let's start this off. I mean, so Prachi, I mean, we're going to be talking a little bit about obviously the use cases of what multilingual surveys are. So take us through a little bit about the uses. I mean, just what's that?
Yeah.
Once L Chu raised hand. Sure, Chu, I mean, if you could put your points into the chat before we begin, if there's anything you need to ask, we can go ahead and see.
We also have a Q&A section.
Yes.
If you just use the toggle on your Zoom bar, you should be able to see a Q&A section. So as we go through this, just feel free to drop all your questions there. We'll pick them up towards the end of this, end of the webinar. We'll address those questions, and then we'll also take some of them offline and get in touch with you through email, phone, however it is you want to connect with us.
Sure. And we will also be sending a recording of this. So don't worry, in case anything was a little blurry during the presentation, don't worry. We'll send you a copy of the presentation and the recording in an email, along with some resources based on which we put this together. And we're always available to answer your questions. So coming back to the question, Prachi, uses of a multilingual survey.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And we have this beautiful presentation, so I'm going to make full use of it. So we're going to be talking about why multilingual surveys and some of the uses of the multilingual surveys, right? Now, before we just dive into why multilingual surveys or specific uses, also want to, we're going to be talking a little bit about taking a step back about what we do here at QuestionPro. And as a lot of you might already be familiar with, we are a survey and an experience management platform. And what that means is that we enable our clients to reach their audience and listen to their audience, use data that we get from there to gain key insights, which in an ideal world will then enable you to empower strategic business decisions. And when we're talking about audience, we're really talking about any stakeholder whose opinion matters for your business success, right? And that could be, those are your customers, your employees, your external panels when you're conducting market research, for example. So covering pretty much all of this. And so mainly to empower you to be able to do all this, we built out a platform that helps you manage your customer experience programs, your employee experience or workforce management programs, and your market research programs as well. And if I might talk a little bit about when we look at market research, really, you could be reaching out to an audience that is truly global, right? Collecting insights from people across different countries, gauging where what sort of an ad might resonate the best with your audience or your target customers, what pricing works better in one market versus what works better in the other market, and where your product launches are likely to be successful, and where you might want to tweak your products based on what goes best with the local sensitivities of that market. Now, to enable you to do all this is where we also see really big benefit of being truly global and truly multilingual. And like I mentioned in my intro, we at QuestionPro are a truly global team, which means we are across different continents, people from all over the world, and our clients then also are all over the world really. And we personally also realized the importance of being able to communicate with our clients and our fellow co-workers in their native languages or the languages where they might be most comfortable. While we make the solution for ourselves, we also understand that this is a great solution for our clients out there. So now, to stop babbling a little bit, I'm going to take you through a little bit about the use cases where multilingual surveys would be quite important, and how some of our clients use it, the benefits that they gain out of it, and later go ahead to talk about some of those features as well. So back here. So when we're talking about truly global businesses, of course, it's really important for us to be able to talk to our customers, our audience, our employees in languages that are really native to them. And not everybody, realizing, in the markets that we're in, not everybody picks English as their second language. So how do we really get the right insight from them? So multilingual surveys here really enable you to gain information from a much larger audience than you would be reaching out to if you were only conducting it in English or any one other language. And the broader an audience you reach out to, of course, the more insight you collect, and those insights will really lead to a much more larger impact on your bottom line. And also as a society, right? As your brand values are also truly shared with your customers. You being a global brand, truly share your values with customers, letting them know that we're here to listen to you where you are most comfortable. And of course, this allows you to gain the opinion from people across diverse backgrounds. And also, when you're listening to people in languages that are most comfortable to them, it allows you to really, when you're distributing your surveys, your questionnaires, you're able to maintain the right tonality, the right sensitivity of the message that you were looking to get across, which also allows one, like I said before, more people to answer your questionnaires, more people to talk to you, also reducing survey fatigue. Now, if I was answering a survey in a language that might not be my first or second, highly likely that 2 questions in or 3 questions in, survey fatigue sets in. I might speed through the survey or just drop out. And now that becomes a big problem if for a company, because we then lose out on the valued opinion of a lot of people, that would have been very imperative in some of our studies, especially again talking about market research. If you are doing research about what pricing might work best for a product that you're about to launch, you really want to listen to as many people as you can reach out to out of your target customer group, right? It definitely becomes a lot easier for individuals, like I said, who don't read English as their second language. We completely eliminate any barriers to any language barriers. And at the end of the day, as a company, I am able to gather all these insights in one place and really analyze my data, create reports, and share all that data in one place with other key stakeholders for decision making as well, right? Yep. So these are some of the high level uses or benefits actually of having and running multilingual surveys. And really what this is going to allow you to do is gain really high quality data from everybody that is in, whose opinion matters to your business success. And Partha, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah. So, I mean, these are very useful uses. I mean, if you look at it from the perspective as a corporate or even as a small business, if you're trying to reach out to a large audience, the larger the audience, the better the quality of data. And the way to kind of personalize that data is obviously through this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run through a few of the benefits and some of the features that we actually have with using multilingual surveys. I mean, obviously we understand the uses of how they are, but what are the benefits of and the features that we cover? So if you could go to the next slide, please.
Yes.
So talking about the features and the benefits, so we have obviously from a feature perspective, we support a lot of languages, but more specifically, there are a lot of different scripts that are available. So right to left, like Arabic, Urdu, I think Sindhi as well. And then there's top to bottom, right to left languages as well. So TBRL languages, I think so, Chinese, Japanese, and a few other scripts like that, which are also multi-byte scripts as well. And we have those in multi-byte characters in our system as well. So Chinese, Japanese, and we have Chinese simplified. We have the traditional, and we also have Chinese that's used in Hong Kong as well. So you could use these languages, and we have auto translate for a lot of these languages as well. And we'll walk through this in a demo at towards the end of this webinar as well. The biggest feature that we have obviously is we evade linguistic and cultural barriers, because what we allow you to do with the question types is not only translate them into a local language, but we also allow you a very rich text sort of approach, in the sense that you could add images, you could add GIFs, you could add hyperlinks, create quality questions that make a person associate with the questions, so they're able to answer with a little more depth, with a little more definition that gives you good quality data. We also allow you to create contact lists using language filters, which means that now you can actually email a specific language surveys to a specific language section of your contact list, which means that now you're targeting a specific list of people with that language that they are most comfortable, because they have indicated as such. And you can actually create this quality data within the QuestionPro platform itself. The biggest thing obviously is that you can view and print these down and these surveys, so you can actually download. So for example, if you have a single survey and you've created multiple language versions of these, you can download each version of this in a separate file format and then print them in these different languages. But the best thing of all obviously is that all of these the data that you're collecting in multilingual format will actually stay on your dashboard in a single location, and it's linked to a single survey, which means that it doesn't matter that there are 10 different languages that are going out. All your data is a single point of contact, and then you can create language versions of that output for you to understand and make value out of that as well. So how does this actually benefit you towards the end of, I mean, all of these features are fantastic. And how does it really benefit you is that the moment you're reaching out to a person in their local language, you have a higher response rate because now a person is able to understand and appreciate the point of that questionnaire and therefore answer the survey better. You have a better respondent experience because now, like I said, if they're reading it in their local language or in a language that they are comfortable with, the chances are they will respond uh, with better information rather than just finishing the survey for the heck of it, which also results in a high quality of data because now you have more respondents. And as you probably know, more respondents means better quality of data. It's obviously very easy for us to create, and we'll show you this in the demo that's coming up immediately after this. And you can maintain these very, very quickly. Yeah, Usha. So top to bottom languages are basically scripts like Chinese and Japanese are typically written traditionally in a top to bottom format. I mean, if you go and look at old Chinese scripts on what would happen is that they're written from a top to bottom format and not in a right to left or a left to right sort of structure. I hope that answers your question. So only a few languages follow that format, which means that paragraphs are obviously clubbed together, but each sentence is one column. So it's written in, if you look at an Excel sheet, for example, a top to bottom would mean that your entire sentence would come in column A rather than row one. Is that does that answer your question, Usha? Awesome, great. So coming back to this, and like I said, at the end of the day, your single survey across languages is in a single place, which means that your data is in a single place, and all of the data from the different language surveys still pertains to the same survey. So you are able to get much better cumulative data despite it being received from so many different languages. So that's essentially, in a nutshell, the feature and benefit portion of what multilingual surveys can do for you. We'll take 2 minutes to see. There are a couple of questions, and let's see how we can help. Um,
Yeah.
Avadanam, you asked, will they conduct survey for research studies by academia by reaching out to responses? So you could actually do that within the platform itself, Avadam, and you can definitely use lingual surveys even for research. So whether it's for customer experience, workforce experience, whether it's actually doing uh, uh, price modeling as well, all of these things also you can use multilingual surveys. It's actually very straightforward. We do have an audiences service as well, which is a separate piece, and we may cover that in a future webinar. But depending on what the respondents that you want to reach out to, yes, you can segregate them. Like I mentioned, you can segregate them by language within the QuestionPro database itself, and you can reach out to them individually for that specific language. So to answer your question, you can conduct surveys for research studies, doesn't matter whether it's academia or not, and you can reach out to respondents based on specific criteria that you specify within your database itself.
Yep.
Haryani Sakshi,
And
yeah, sorry.
just adding on there, we do a lot of work with universities. We do a lot of these studies for academia as well. So, and we have actually experts from from academia working with our clients to help them formulate these studies. So definitely would love to learn more about and help you out in terms of getting some of these programs launched.
Yeah. Sakshi, you want to know how to start marketing. Sakshi, that's a very, very big topic. I'll probably have to do a separate webinar over that, but that's unfortunately not what we will cover here. What I can talk to you about is the different ways that you can market a multilingual survey, but let's address that once we go through the demo. And there are a few different ways that you can actually do that. And probably that should give you an idea as to how you can start marketing as well. All right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And actually, just coming back to academia, I think I read a study recently, not able to point out where from, but I could possibly share it with the group, after our webinar, where there were a couple of universities that participated in the study. They actually, it was observed that some of the surveys that they launched, which were only in English, primarily were answered by a small subset of all the students, who mainly had and they actually missed out on listening to a lot of their students that were that didn't have first or second languages English. And then a second round where they deployed multilingual surveys, and the quality and richness of the data spoke for itself, was much higher. I will look at finding some of these research studies, and then we could possibly have them circulated with the group that's on the webinar.
Absolutely. Another point that actually came to mind right now is that you can use a multilingual survey. I mean, everybody's online right now. Before, when people used to collect information on surveys, they'd have these printouts and they'd go and talk to people and they'd ask people, what language are you comfortable with? I mean, the surveys were essentially printed in a single language, but they would ask people what language they were comfortable with. I mean, I'm speaking from experience where people used to come home and say, are you comfortable with Hindi or English or Marathi? And then they would translate in real time the questions that were in their survey to your language. But now with this tool that we have, and you can either do it automatically or you can manually create your own translations. And we offer that as a service as well separately. But what happens with this tool is that now you're actually creating these in the language of choice, and then you can distribute it to that specific audience, which reduces this fatigue of going back and forth of did you reach out and were you able to connect with a person using that language or not. So this, obviously there's a lot of friction in terms of language, because if you look at Asia Pacific as a region, we have over 35-40 languages at least, just within the Asia continent. I mean, so it becomes very important for us to understand who the audience is, what language they're comfortable with, and segregate as such.
Yep, great insight. Also, when you were talking about people still conducting surveys with the pen and paper format, actually great replacement for that, which I will share when we go through the demo. But now just replace that with with a tablet or your mobile phone, where you have where you have like an offline questionnaire. A lot of our clients actually, and a lot of this happened pre-pandemic, where we would have clients that were in the field, sometimes in a more remote location where there might not be a great internet connection. So using our offline mobile app, where one, they can easily switch between languages, gather feedback from from the audience there, and and once, so it's no longer pen and paper. Once your survey is done, you get back to a place where you have good internet connection and everything gets synced. So two birds with a stone, really. You got your multilingual. You didn't have to really translate real time. It was all there on your mobile phone, and no more typing it into an Excel sheet and digitizing it, right? Immediately gets synced, and you have a report, you have your dashboard, and your stakeholders across the globe can really just chime in and take a look at that data.
Awesome. So let's take a few minutes and see if there are any more questions. Do you have any more questions from all the information that we've covered so far? Or if we can just jump right into the demo in a few minutes, let us know. We're waiting from you.
I will start our switch over to the demo.
Just go ahead and switch to the demo. In the meantime, I'm monitoring for questions.
Okay. Just one moment.
No problem. We do not have any more questions at this point. I think the demo will raise a lot of questions.
Also, if anything comes up afterwards, because that's what we're here for.
Awesome. So just to kind of give you an idea, I mean, it sounds very difficult. I mean, when you talk about multilingual surveys, I mean, the first time when I joined the company and I heard about multilingual surveys, it literally was like, this is going to be so difficult. But honestly, it takes all of 5 minutes to set up if you do it really, really quickly. And that's what Prachi is going to demonstrate right now. It's all yours.
Yep, thank you. So this is our platform. For some of you who might be seeing this for the first time, once you log in, this is the first page that you see. And all the programs that I talked about earlier, our customer experience, workforce, market research, they're all really built on our core survey platform, which is what I'm showing right now. And I think personally, one great thing that I find also while setting up this demo was that you can add folders here. So all my surveys don't really have to be, just a long list and I have to keep scrolling through them. Instead, I could have different folders and organize them accordingly. So right now what I've done is I've created a new folder just for my multilingual surveys demo, right? Once I go in here, so right now I have one questionnaire that I've already set up with one of our templates. And if you were coming in and doing that again, you would go here. I could either now create a new survey, or I could just use a template, which I can use as is or make any changes to. A whole bunch of templates here. And we also help our clients design surveys in case you have specific drivers, and these templates are not really something you want to use in that case. So you could check out our most popular surveys. What I'm going to do here is maybe just go to customer satisfaction. Let's say I wanted to just launch a new survey. I'm going to start with defining my brand. Once I click on that, I then see, I see a preview of the template. I can just scroll through, see if these questions pretty much fit what I am looking to launch. I can choose to use this template and then go in and make changes to any questions, make changes to logic. This is now pretty much just open to me to do whatever I want with. I'm going to go back and look at the questionnaire that I had set up for. This is in case I was running like a market research product, product research, trying to find out, sorry, if my audience would be interested in purchasing a particular product and how important a couple of those features will be, letting them rate it from least important to most important, like having all these matrix type questions, get an idea of what price range might be the most attractive based on these features of the product that I'm researching on. And here, considering that you're given all those features at your preferred price range, would you then be likely to purchase or not to purchase? So just with the concept of this questionnaire, I bet we can see that this is really important information that you want to get from your target market. You don't really want to make a decision on pricing or features completely based on intuition. And that's mainly because now you can do it a different way, right? You can talk to your customers and you can take these decisions based on actual data we're getting from them. So now if I go in here, first I see my questionnaire in English, and then up here I have languages. Now, like Partha mentioned, we support, I think at this point, 95 languages, which are already built in. And for any language that might not already be here, I think it takes us about a week or two to get that added for you, right? So very, very, very quick and with literally no barriers. Now, here what you're seeing is I just went ahead in my excitement, added a bunch of these languages. If I wanted to add a couple of more, just go to add languages. And here I see the entire list of all the languages that I have ready to use right now. I think what personally I found really interesting when I logged in here was to see Klingon here. So if any of you, I guess, are familiar with this, this is a language built by the show Star Trek. And it was really interesting to see that we have Klingon here because, if you have gamers out there, if you have Star Trek fans who speak Klingon, you could also use this and set up a survey in that language. Just for example, I'm going to maybe select Nepali. I've selected a bunch of other languages like Indonesian, Tagalog, Malay, Vietnamese. I'm going to just pick on, let's say, Cyrillic and French. Go ahead, save changes. And now this gets added to my questionnaire. Here, I have a bunch of options. Now, when you see auto translate, of course, for any of these translation to work, I'd go here and click on auto translate. And what this would do is, at this point, we use Google Translate to get all these languages translated. And Google Translate won't be 100, sometimes might not be 100% accurate. And that's why we give you options to come in and manually change some of those translations, import translations if you already have them, or just let us know what you need and get a quote. Here you would just enter what language you need. You've already set up the questionnaire, so we know how many questions are there. And then we have a pool of our translators, who would assess and get back to you with timelines, cost, anything of that sort. Yep, so Arabic displays right to left. If we had Japanese or Chinese at this point, Google Translate, will put it as a standard left to right, but you could have your own manual translations or import translations according to how you wanted them to be displayed. Now, once I've set this up, let me just take you to manual. This is really helpful because let's say most of it I was comfortable with in terms of how it got translated with Google Translate, but I want to come in and make some changes. I can just do that right here, right? And here I toggle between different languages. Let's say I could pick Hindi, I could pick Malay, and as you can see, the direction changed from Arabic to the other languages. This I don't think I translated yet, so Tagalog, you would see that again. And I think this was, I definitely saw this as a lot of really helpful to a lot of clients, that you're not just translating your questions and answers, you're also translating the main, your general text, such as your start button, your finish button, thank you page messages, continue. So it's not like half your survey appears in a different language and the other is still in English. Instead, we're actually giving you the capability of changing absolutely everything in a different language, including also logos. So here, you could just come here and change the logo depending on the language. You could also add images to your responses or to your questions as well. So for that, I go here. These are all my questions. I can come here and add a question. I can add an image here. And for Tagalog, I might want a different image with different language text on the image to appear. So I can do that from right here. Yep, and this would just be your manual translate options. The other you'd also have import translations. So you have, let's say you already have the entire questionnaire translated. You don't really want to use the Google Translate function and do the manual translations. You could also just come here and import what you already have. So you would just download the import template and you would get something that looks like this, where you're basically seeing the English versions and then the languages that you've selected, those versions, and you just enter any of your languages, any of your translations into that.
Prachi, we have a question. So, Lan, yes, of course, to answer your question, you asked if you have your own survey questions, can you import them? Yes. So, when you begin the survey, you have the option to import questions from a third-party source. You can use Excel or you could just copy paste. There are a few different ways that you can import your questions. And yes, it will identify as Chinese, so it will completely work there. And that can be the only language you work with. You don't have to create the questions in English. So yes, to answer your question, yes, it would work. Sorry, please go ahead.
Sure. Okay, yep. So once you have your translations, you just import, select the right, I would select this, click on open and have that updated. Now, what this would do is no more save buttons. Once you've imported it, it would just have, you could also come here and test it. Everything would have been translated already. Now, how this looks, let's check out how this looks as an actual survey. So here you go. I've selected a whole bunch of languages. Of course, you could have just one or two. And before somebody starts the survey, they can select what language they want to proceed in. Let's say I did Tagalog here. And the entire questionnaire after that would appear in my selected language, along with the next button, along with the close button, thank you message, absolutely everything, right? Everything that I have changed. Yeah. So I did mention that you could have different images based on your languages as well. And getting a little bit technical there, for us, we have options of these variables, which we call custom variables, which is basically, a custom attribute or a value, something that you could store absolutely any value under. And what that allows us to do is, build a lot of relations based on the value you store in a custom variable. So now that means that I could have a custom variable as a country or a city or a language and build a relation on QuestionPro where the selection of that particular custom variable would display different images, would display different questions. So you could actually have, if you were running an ads campaign, trying to figure out which ad works better in which country, you could just have, you would be running the same survey, but your respondents in different countries would be seeing different ad images, right? And at the end of the day, you would have all your data in one place, all the reports in one place as well. And of course, another thing, if you are running surveys in different languages, you also want to be able to send out the email in that language. And that can also very easily be done. Here we have some templates, right? You would just come here and create a new template, change this completely to, to the language that you're going to distribute the survey in, select a language to say, all the languages that I've selected are here. Now, what this would mean is when somebody started a questionnaire or a survey from this email, their survey would launch in this language by default. What I have done is just some of these samples. I don't really have them translated at this point, but what I've done is mainly just changed this to say that this is your Malay email, your language is set up accordingly. And then again, with custom variables, lets us do a lot of things. What I could just do here now is have a list, which would look something like this, that would just basically allow me to say that for this email address, I want to select, the language is Arabic, they're located in Dubai. If you're looking at, let's say for the academia use case, you could have their student ID here. For your employees, you could have an employee ID here, or absolutely any other piece of information, right? And now I could build a relation saying that if Dubai is true, then send my email in Arabic. If Philippines is true, send my email in Tagalog. If Malaysia is true, send my email in Malay. Right? I could build a bunch of those relations for the email and for our questionnaire that goes out.
Lan has a question.
Yeah.
Lan has a question. He's asking, what's the difference between the Google questionnaire design and yours? And what's the difference?
So are you talking about the Google Forms? I'm guessing that would be it.
Lan, are you talking about Google Forms?
So yes, actually, if we are
talking about Google Forms.
Right. So if we look at Google Forms, of course, one Google Forms is, it's more for your self-survey, building shorter questionnaires. how you would see a lot of difference between QuestionPro and Google Forms is you have a lot of customization abilities. One is also when your survey goes out, your branding, your colors, everything, your logos, images, everything's going to be customized. We have a lot of advanced logic where so now depending on a particular answer, I could do a whole bunch of things as, direct them to a particular question, or even ask them, okay, if they say they are not interested, just terminate the survey. You could set up quotas on questionnaires on QuestionPro. So basically to say, I could have a question that says, where are you from? And select and set a quota to say that only 20 respondents should respond from each country. Once a quota is filled, we terminate the survey. And you have validation logics, you have data quality logics to make sure that if somebody's answering a questionnaire and your average answer time is, let's say, 2 minutes, but you suddenly have respondents that seem to have finished it within 10 seconds, our system will be able to highlight that to you and say, hey, this might not be a genuine response. So you basically can maintain your data quality. And of course, that is just very surface level of some of the points, but additionally, there are just so many question types, so many logics. We're actually, so when I mentioned we have different products for different programs, we've built out a lot of features and support for use cases that would, so randomization, which might be specifically useful for market research. We have, workflows, which might be specifically useful for customer experience. So the product is really a lot more robust and gives you the ability to do a lot more things than you would do with the Google Forms, ideally. And of course, we can't forget our analytics, right? So
one second, before you jump into analytics, Prachi,
yeah.
There's still a couple of questions on the design aspect. So let's try kind of address that. So to answer your question a little bit more, you asked about the difference between the Google questionnaire design. From a customization perspective, Google offers you maybe a few themes and maybe adding a banner on top, and that's about it. Whereas in ours, you can actually define entire custom style sheets in the design aspect of things. Prachi, if you could just go into the edit and show him the design tab. Yeah. So if you go into design, you can obviously set color schemes here, change fonts. You can create your own custom theme, which obviously gives you the functionality of making it your own brand, which Google Forms doesn't allow you to do. The other thing that Google Form doesn't allow you to do is actually create subdomain based surveys. So on the top right, you'll notice that there's a link over there, or that URL can be anything you want it to be as well, which I don't think Google Form allows you to do. So just from an entire professional standpoint, our platform allows you to do a whole bunch more when you come onto the advanced license and do all of these things with multilingual surveys, adding the mobile app, doing these subdomain customizations. And obviously, this is just scratching the surface of the customizations you can do within the questions. Vijaya, you can insert smileys into the questionnaire, but I'm not sure if HTML. Allow me to check. Do we allow smileys in answers, Prachi?
Yep. I mean, if they were, you could have it preset.
So
we definitely have smileys and questionnaires. So if you're talking about
the questions, right? The question itself. So you have the sliding scale and all of that, for example. So yeah, so you see the smiley rating, the star rating. So yes, that is definitely. So that's, I think, part of the NPS measurement as well, if you can kind of look at it.
You can also change smileys.
So yeah, and you can add custom logos as well. You can add customs as well. So if you look on there, you can add the custom icons as well.
Yep.
So you can add 5 different smileys for you have the opportunity of doing that. Shireen asked a question: could I import an English survey and use it? But do I need yes, you would need your own email list. It's obviously because you would have to build your own email list, and you can definitely use and import an English survey, translate it into as many languages as you want that allow auto translate, and you can definitely send it out to your email list. If you want audience as a service from us, that's something that you can have a conversation. Prachi is happy to connect with you if you want to have that. And like I mentioned before, this is definitely way better than Google Forms at so many different levels.
And just 1 second here. So if you're looking at importing your own questionnaire, you could definitely do that. What we do is give you an option to, download a Word file, which basically tells you in what format you'll have to enter different questions. You can just, fill that out and have that uploaded. So you don't necessarily have to create a questionnaire by adding questions one by one. You are free to upload your own questionnaire as well. And the distribution will always be to your list, or like Partha mentioned, we're more than happy to, work with you to connect you to the right audience, which we do in a lot of our market research cases as well. We have a base of about, I think, 22 million panelists globally. So depending on what your specifications are in terms of the sort of people you want to reach out to, the sort of insights you want to gain, we have an audience team that works with you for that.
Usha has a question. She's asking, can you walk through randomization options for specific use cases in research specific use cases?
Yep. So definitely, Usha, that is an entire demo on its own, and I'd love to connect with you offline. So Partha can just, share an email address with me, and I'll send you over an email, and we can have a demo where we go through all the randomization options. It'll take a good amount of 30 minutes of your time when I walk you through all the randomization options.
Yeah, I think that's a separate webinar altogether, and we'll work on that too. So coming back to reporting now, I'm sorry, I won't interrupt you again unless there are any questions for that. Lan, we will definitely connect with you if you have any more questions about specific translations. So he asked if we have to pay extra for the questionnaire to be translated into another language. So yes, to answer your question, yes, we do have auto translations, but then Google translation is known to be about 70 to 80% accurate. It's very, very word by word formatted. I mean, the grammar is not that great, but it's a great starting point for you to build your own translations rather than having to worry about how a sentence should be structured or how the question should be structured. It gives you a good place to start. If you want our translation services, that is extra. You can use your own translator if you want. And so these are different ways that you can actually build the translation. We have auto translation, and Prachi has already showed you that. And it's actually fairly straightforward to build on top of that.
Yep. And Len, like Partha said, happy to connect with you after the webinar as well, and just understand your use cases, and we can work out a solution for you with translations.
All right, so we have a few minutes. We're just going to walk through how multilinguals work in reporting, and then we're going to wrap up. So let's just go through that.
Yep. So I was actually, when I hopped over to analytics, this is also in continuation to the Google Forms questions as well. Yeah. I think what you won't really be able to do with Google Forms, in the past, I've used it as well, and I mainly get an Excel report, right? And of course, you can, that's a very basic functionality. You can definitely get your Excel report, but what you can really do is you have all your data presented to you in a readily consumable format to actually gain insights of that. So you can view your data as a pie chart, bar chart. You can create, look at a trend analysis. You can have cross tabulation, so comparing different questions, you can also compare different surveys under survey comparison. And when you look at multilingual surveys, when you're launching that, now you might have regional heads that look at different type of information or need to look at different data coming in from specific countries. You, of course, wouldn't want to overwhelm them and confuse them with the overall data you have in your account. So in that case, you create dashboards, which could be, like I could have these created. However, I could have one created from Malaysia and then go in here and select different criteria. So I could either create a new criteria or use an existing criteria to basically say that, if a certain question is answered as such, or since I have languages activated, if, the language for this survey was Malay, then, filter all that data out here. And now my regional manager would only be looking at data that is specific to them. So you could do that in, you could use filters in terms of languages, in terms of countries, and pretty much any value, any unique identifier that is that you use internally. I think at a brief level, this is pretty much what I want to show in terms of analytics. There are a bunch of different capabilities. What we see a really growing requirement for is the heat map analysis or our hotspot analysis, where you would have a question with an image in it, and it basically you can ask your audience to click on what they see first when they look at that image, when you're trying to understand, whether an ad is delivering the right information that you want. And this is a great analysis. After that, just shows you different spots with different colors. So you will see red for what the spot that has been clicked the most. You will see green, you'll see orange, all depending on whichever spot on an image got the most interaction. So, yep, this definitely see this as a growing, a growing need in the market, and a lot of that also coming from a lot of market research which was being done offline, now moving to a more online model. So, of course, different companies are trying always possible to engage their audience now from a digital point, right? While gathering those insights. Yeah.
Usha has a question. She's asking, do you provide auto translations to default language for entries to say text questions? Do you want to take that?
Right. So if you're talking about answer, when an answer comes in, it will by default come in the language that the customer has used to answer that question. So depending on, you can auto translate it using Google Translate, but what you will see initially is in your reports and all will be the language that the customer or your audience used while responding to the question. Okay.
Awesome. All right. Is that it? Or I think we're pretty much done, right? I mean, we spoke about results and analytics.
In terms of what we wanted to go through, I think we've covered everything. And I would.
Oh, I missed a question. Lan wanted to talk about the text analysis. Can you show him that as well?
Yeah. Right. So text analysis, you have options like sentiment analysis. At this point, your sentiment analysis is supported in English. We are constantly adding more features. So, the support of different languages is in the pipeline, but it's not something that happens right away. So you have sentiment analysis for English, and that is basically where, we use IBM Watson. And depending on your responses coming in, our AI is going to identify which is a positive response, which is a negative response, and it's going to help you filter those out, in a grid before you dive in. You also have things like word cloud, and this also works on any of your open-ended question. And what this is going to do is basically, depending whichever word was used the most, you'll see it blow up, you'll see it much larger. Based on the frequency of usage of different words, you're going to see a word cloud, and you could then just, be clicking on those words and take a look at, what are the responses that actually had these terms in them. Yep, and your text report is basically just a dump of all your open-ended responses that came in, with some of the analysis here telling you the completion rate of your survey, average time taken to answer them, and then a question-wise question breakup down here. Also very happy to take you through all the text analysis options in detail on a demo call separately, and we can figure out your specific use case and maybe set up some test accounts for you to see how this looks with your data. Okay. Are there any other questions at this point?
Fantastic. I think we have covered quite a bit of information on how multilingual surveys can actually help you in your small business, in your any size of business, actually, especially if you're interested in collecting information from a varied and a diverse audience. And in our region, this is so important. I mean, if you look at it from the perspective of the kind of countries that we deal with on a regular basis, you'll realize that we deal with more than one language at the bare minimum. So reaching out to in a language that your audience can actually associate with and actually give you meaningful insights on, that's what we are here to help you with. Once again, if you feel that you really need to get more information, we will be sending you an email at the end of this webinar, towards the end of today or early tomorrow, that rounds up the entire webinar, gives you access to the presentation, the video, as well as some resources on multilingual surveys. And I'll also put in our contact information, so feel free to reach out to us at any point to set up a meeting and to understand how this platform can help you and your business reach your research goals.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant, and excited to get in touch with you guys on any information you need. Happy to set up more demo calls and answer any questions that we haven't covered on the webinar.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you very much once again for joining us for this webinar. We're going to be sending you again information to the next session that will happen very soon. So again, thank you very much for joining us. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.